The wind howled through the narrow alley, as if trying to drag away every forgotten secret hidden there. It was a cold evening, the sky bruised with dark clouds, and the faint smell of rain lingered in the heavy air. Mark Turner, a quiet man who worked long hours at a mechanic's shop, was taking a shortcut home, something he rarely did. He wasn't the type to get involved in anything, but life had a strange way of pulling people into moments they never expected. As he walked past an old brick building, something made him stop. A small movement, a shadow quick, trembling, desperate. When he took a step closer, his breath caught in his throat. There, beside a rusted dumpster, was a tiny girl, no more than 7 or 8 years old, digging through trash with her bare hands. Her hair was matted, her clothes were torn, and her face carried a kind of sadness that didn't belong on someone so young. She shivered as she pulled out a half-eaten piece of bread, holding it as if it were treasure. In that instant, Mark felt something inside him crack open, a feeling he had long buried. Little did he know, this little girl wasn't just lost, she was the missing heiress, whose disappearance the entire city had been frantically searching for. If you're watching this story on Silent Hope, please like, comment, share, and subscribe if you believe in kindness, compassion, and second chances, because this is the kind of moment that can change everything. Mark's feet felt frozen. He had seen hunger. He had seen struggle. But something about this little girl felt wrong on a much deeper level. She had the posture of someone who had been missing warmth, safety, and love for far too long. The world around them seemed to fall completely silent, as if holding its breath. Mark slowly stepped forward, but the girl flinched, her small hands clutching the stale bread to her chest, her eyes big, frightened, and filled with exhaustion, darted around like a trapped bird expecting danger. Mark didn't speak. He didn't want to scare her. He simply crouched down and placed his bag on the ground, letting her see he meant no harm. He opened the zipper carefully and pulled out his own dinner, 2 sandwiches he had brought from work. He opened the wrapper so she could see the fresh bread before gently placing it on the ground, sliding it a little closer to her. He then took a step back. The girl hesitated, watching him like she expected a trick, like someone had taught her not to trust kindness. But hunger won. She crawled forward and grabbed the sandwich, her small hands shaking as she devoured it in frantic bites that nearly made Mark's chest ache. As she ate, her eyes never left him, still unsure, still wary, still ready to run. Mark felt the weight of silence grow thicker between them, but he remained patient. He knew the world had been cruel to her. Someone had made it that way. Rain began to fall softly, creating tiny splashes around their feet. The girl lowered her head, almost expecting the sky's coldness to punish her. Mark took off his jacket and gently set it on the ground near her without touching her. She stared at it like it was something unreal. Slowly, very slowly, she reached for it, sliding her frail arms into the sleeves. It swallowed her small frame, but the warmth it held made her exhale shakily, her lips parting as though she had forgotten what warmth felt like. Mark knew he couldn't just leave her there. Something was deeply wrong. This wasn't a runaway child. This wasn't neglect. This felt like fear, trauma, and the way her eyes flickered at every noise told him she had seen more than any child should ever see. He pulled out his phone, scrolling through articles that had been plastered all over the news for weeks. A missing girl, Emily Hartley, heiress of the Hartley Foundation, kidnapped. The family had offered a massive reward, but despite hundreds of leads, no trace of her had been found. Mark glanced at the girl again. Her face, under the dirt, carried the same soft features, the same eyes, the same innocence the missing posters showed before the world stole it away. His heart pounded. Could this really be her? He didn't want to frighten her by calling for help in front of her, so he simply extended his hand, not to grab her, but to let her choose. After a long moment, the girl took a step toward him, just one. But it was enough. He gently guided her out of the alley, keeping his pace slow. Every time a car passed or a dog barked, she jerked her head around, trembling violently. Eventually, he realized she couldn't walk anymore. Her legs were shaking too badly. Without saying anything, he crouched down and allowed her to climb onto his back. She hesitated, then slowly placed her small arms around his neck. Her touch was so fragile it broke him open inside. She rested her cheek against his shoulder as if for the first time in days she felt safe enough to breathe. As he carried her through the dim streets toward his apartment, his mind raced not with fear, but with urgency. If someone had done this to her, that someone might still be looking for her. And if she truly was the missing heiress, this wasn't just a random tragedy. It was a dangerous one. When he reached home, a small but clean apartment, he gently placed her on his couch. She curled her knees to her chest, looking around with cautious eyes. He brought her a blanket from his bedroom and wrapped it around her, watching as she sank into its comfort, her face softening for the first time. He fixed warm soup, letting the steam fill the small kitchen, and when he placed the bowl in front of her, she looked at it as though she didn't believe it was meant for her. Only after he nodded did she lift the spoon with trembling hands. As she ate, Mark called a number he had found on the missing poster, an emergency hotline created by the Hartley family for any leads. His voice shook as he explained what he had found. The coordinator on the other end didn't waste a second. Authorities were dispatched immediately. But Mark didn't tell the girl this. He didn't want to scare her. Instead, he sat across the room, letting her see that he wasn't leaving her alone. Minutes later, the girl's breathing calmed. She looked at him with eyes that seemed to be searching for something. Maybe reassurance. Maybe a promise. Maybe just a moment of peace. Mark offered a small smile, not forced, not pitying, just gentle. And for the first time, she returned it. Faintly, but truly. The sound of sirens in the distance slowly grew louder. Mark's heart quickened, not out of fear, but hope that this little girl would finally be safe, would finally be returned to the family who must be dying inside every day she had been gone. But the girl heard the sirens too. Her entire body tensed, shaking violently. She dropped the spoon. Her breath turned sharp and panicked. Before Mark could move, she scrambled off the couch, hiding behind it, curling into a ball as her small body trembled uncontrollably. In that moment, Mark understood. Someone in a position of authority had hurt her, or at least someone pretending to be. To her, sirens didn't mean safety. They meant danger. He gently approached the couch, kneeling beside it, keeping his voice low and steady. He didn't touch her. He didn't move too quickly. He simply said that she was safe here, that no one would harm her, that he wouldn't let anything bad happen. It took time, but eventually her breathing slowed, her tiny fingers unclenched, and she peeked out with tear-filled eyes. When she finally crawled into his arms, burying her face against his shirt, Mark held her carefully, like she was the most fragile thing in the world. She stayed like that, until there was a knock on the door. Authorities entered gently, accompanied by a woman whose face was pale with fear and hope, Emily's mother. The moment her eyes fell on the girl in Mark's arms, she let out a sob so raw it filled the entire apartment. Emily turned toward the sound, her eyes widening with recognition, sorrow, and longing. The world seemed to freeze as mother and daughter stared at each other through the ache of all the days stolen from them. And then, slowly, Emily reached toward her mother's trembling hands. The reunion was beautiful and heartbreaking all at once. Emily clung to her mother with desperate strength, crying into her shoulder while her mother held her as though letting go would break the universe in half. Mark stepped back quietly, watching the moment unfold with a heart full of relief and gratitude. He wasn't the hero. He was just someone who refused to walk away when most people would have. Hours later, after the chaos settled, authorities asked questions, thanked him repeatedly, and made arrangements for Emily's safety and care. Her family offered deep gratitude, and although the world would soon celebrate the return of the missing heiress, Mark only cared that she was safe. When Emily left the apartment, she looked back at him, her eyes still tired, still fragile, softened with a silent message. Trust. Thank you. Goodbye. But Mark hoped it wasn't forever. Days passed, and news outlets covered the story endlessly. The city praised Mark as a quiet hero, though he never sought attention. He went back to his job, to his small apartment, to his quiet life, but something had changed inside him. He carried a warmth he hadn't felt in years. Emily had been a reminder that every act of kindness, no matter how small, could save a life. 2 weeks later, he received a letter. It was simple, written in a child's uneven handwriting. Thank you for finding me. Thank you for not being scary. I'm safe now. I won't forget you. He read the letter countless times, each word touching a part of his heart he had believed was long gone. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, share, and subscribe to Silent Hope. Your support helps us keep creating meaningful stories that show the power of compassion. Before we close, please comment below, what would you have done if you were in Mark's place? And remember, sometimes the smallest kindness becomes someone's greatest rescue.